In November of 2024, I took another trip to Taos to teach a tapestry retreat at Mabel Dodge Luhan House. Here I'm on my way there, going over Highway 64 over the mountain between Chama and Tres Piedras, which is on the way to Taos. You'd have to be forgiven if you thought that this couldn't possibly be the entrance road to a hotel, but this is indeed Morada Lane, which is the way to get to Mabel Dodge Luhan House. This way. I arrived at Mabel Dodge Luhan House in Taos, New Mexico, a day early so that I could have some time to set up and settle in before my class arrived. In December of 1917, at the age of 38, Mabel Dodge Luhan made her way to Taos from the East Coast. Mabel had a rich and storied life full of many adventures and husbands, but her time in Taos was one in which she brought many artists out from the East to live, and many of them stayed there. People like Georgia O'Keeffe, D.H. Lawrence, Willa Cather. These were all people that Mabel influenced by bringing them to the desert. Because I've spent so many weeks teaching at Mabel Dodge Luhan House now, I've become interested in who Mabel was and how she influenced the area around Taos. I also like searching out places she talks about in her book. I had a few extra hours before my students arrived, and I went to search out the road that Mabel took from Santa Fe to Taos. I was particularly looking for the connection through a canyon from the Rio Grande up to the rim of the plateau approaching Taos. The images that I'm showing here are from a little hike I did on that actual road that Mabel is talking about in the following reading. Here's a little section from Edge of Taos Desert written by Mabel Dodge Luhan herself about her first trip to Taos from the East Coast. We were in the wildest spot imaginable, climbing northwards through a narrow pass. Here in these depths of the mountains, a steep road mounted alongside the high slope on the opposite side, and it was rutted and washed narrow. We could look down into the black chasm we had left, and it was to be hoped we would not meet anyone coming towards us. We were away from river life now, working our path upwards to the Taos tableland. Mr. Kraft sighed as he struggled along. Now we were really headed away from civilization. Now indeed we left the world behind. The Rio Grande Canyon was a part of the world he knew. It had a railroad station in it, down below, and the familiar river that flowed near Santa Fe had kept us company all day. Now we were going into isolation. The road mounted steadily, cut out of the mountainside, and sometimes it was not much wider than the car, and without anything to keep us from rolling down. Had the steering gear broken or the engine failed us on that steep incline, we would have been in terrible danger. Mr. Kraft leaned forward over his wheel, and Maurice giggled nervously. He put his hand on my arm and murmured, "Where are you taking me to, darling?" As we climbed out of the shadowy depths and descended again, climbed again, and wended our blind way through the dark trees, the light grew more golden and more fair, until suddenly we reached the top and swung around a curve onto level land, and there we were in a great blaze of sunlight, so mellow and so enveloping that we could see nothing for a moment. The sun, with a great smile radiating from it, was just at the rim of the faraway horizon, level with our eyes where we paused to look about us. Its rays came to our faces straight and unobstructed across the gulf of the black Rio Grande Canyon over westward. The interminable desert beyond stretched between it and us like a soft, darkened carpet. The little canyon we had come through had spewed us up out of its depths, and we stood breathless in awe at the scene that stretched before us, that was revealed only for the short time it takes a sun to sink below the edge of the earth when it is many miles distant. After spending a few hours searching for Mabel out on the landscape, it was time to go back to her house and set up for our tapestry retreat. Tables were set out, Yarn was arranged, looms were warped, and everybody dove into their weaving projects. I stopped by the workshop room one night after dinner and found almost everybody here late weaving. There was a lot of collaboration and a lot of laughter, and quite a few tapestries were also woven. I can't say enough good things about the food at Mabel Dodge Luhan House. This is Mabel's dining room, and we got to eat there for breakfast and lunch and many dinners. They're very good at accommodating food problems. I can't have gluten, and one day at lunch there were sopapillas, and I thought, well, I can't have that. And then dear Martha came out of the kitchen and brought me a plate of gluten-free sopapillas. What's more, she did it again the next day when I couldn't have the carrot cake dessert. Martha is my hero. The class took a little trip up to Taos Wools in Arroyo Seco one afternoon. We got a look at one of my pieces that's there, Emergence 1, and I answered some questions for some of the students about how I did some of the hatching in the piece. There was some laughter about who was and wasn't buying yarn. I got away with a pretty good stash. Kathy managed to walk away with just one skein. I couldn't convince one of those people to join me for ice cream, but I certainly wasn't going to miss Taos Cow. How about a little hike up the ski valley? This is the Columbine Hondo Wilderness. Anyway, I used to come up here a lot when I lived in El Rito, New Mexico, hiking in the ski valley. This trail goes up to Lobo Peak, which I will not be getting to today. I'm sure there's snow up there, but it is beautiful sunny afternoon in the Taos Ski Valley. Just went to the yarn shop and needed to walk off my Taos Cow ice cream. It's chilly today. It's November, late November, and it is probably 40 degrees up here, maybe. So we'll do a few miles and then go back to Mabel Dodge for dinner. I have no illusions that my little 2-mile hike, even though the elevation gain is quite excessive, they all are in the Taos Ski Valley, will burn off the calories from the ice cream I ate an hour ago. But it might stop the blood sugar spike. Anyway, this is a lovely trail. It's the Manzanita Trail in the Ski Valley, Taos Ski Valley. There's a lot of snow up here already, and I wish I'd been here earlier in the day. Actually, it would have been a great day to go all the way up Lobo Peak, but I probably would have needed some micro spikes and trekking poles, and I am not equipped. So I'll be turning around, going back to Mabel Dodge Luhan House, doing a little weaving, and getting ready for another day of a tapestry retreat tomorrow with a fantastic group of people. I hope that you are doing well, doing some weaving and getting in some hiking, even if it's winter where you are. I'm grateful to this marvelous group of people for joining me to work on all of our tapestry skills. On the last morning, everybody had breakfast, packed up, and said our goodbyes until next year. I also packed my car and headed home over the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge. I headed home back over Highway 64 through Chama on a cloudy day. I had one last little bit of business to do, and that was to find this spot. I'll be back when the snow melts, CDT. I'm just wondering if Mabel's ghost is trying to tell us something.